The endless road with more suspense and a call to action. Tom was driving home late at night. The highway stretched out in front of him, a long, dark ribbon cutting through the empty countryside. The headlights of his old sedan barely dented the darkness, and the clock on the dashboard read 12:03 a.m., the same time it had read for the last hour. He shook his head, trying to stay awake. He didn't remember the last time he'd passed a turnoff or even another car. Just mile after mile of blacktop and silence. Then, up ahead, a mile marker flashed by. Mile 0. Tom frowned. That couldn't be right. He'd been driving for hours. He should have seen dozens of markers by now. But this was the first one he'd noticed. Maybe he'd just missed the others. He pressed down on the gas, determined to get home. 10 minutes later, another mile marker appeared. Mile 0. Tom's hands tightened on the steering wheel. What the hell? He muttered. His pulse quickened as he glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see something, a car, a person, anything, but the road behind him was just as empty as the one ahead. Then, out of nowhere, a gas station appeared. Its flickering neon sign read "Fill and Go" in bright red letters. The place looked run down, like it hadn't been touched in decades. But Tom was desperate for a break. He pulled into the lot and parked. The air outside was cold, almost unnaturally so, and he felt a strange pressure in his chest as he approached the door. Through the glass, he could see a man standing behind the counter, staring blankly into the night. Tom opened the door. A tiny bell jingled above him, but the man didn't move. He just stood there, his pale face lit by the harsh fluorescent lights. "Hey," Tom said, forcing a smile. "I think I'm lost. Can you tell me where I am?" The man didn't answer. He didn't even blink. Tom's smile faded. "Hello, are you okay?" Still nothing. His unease grew as he glanced out the window. Two people sat on a bench near the entrance, their heads tilted slightly, their eyes fixed on him. They didn't blink either. They didn't even breathe. Tom backed away slowly. "Forget it," he muttered under his breath, hurrying out the door and into his car. He sped back onto the highway, his heart pounding. The dashboard clock still read 12:03 a.m., but he didn't care. He just needed to get away from that place. But 10 minutes later, the gas station appeared again. Tom's stomach twisted. "No," he whispered. "This is impossible." He drove past it without stopping, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. But no matter how far or how fast he drove, the gas station kept appearing, its flickering red sign glowing faintly in the distance. And every time he passed, the people on the bench were closer. Finally, Tom couldn't take it anymore. He pulled into the lot again, heart thundering in his chest. This time, the man behind the counter wasn't inside. He was standing in the middle of the parking lot, his head tilted at an unnatural angle, his lips stretched into a too-wide smile. Tom didn't get out of the car. He locked the doors and hit the gas, tires screeching as he sped away. But when he glanced in the rearview mirror, the man was there, sitting in the back seat, grinning at him. "Where do you think you're going?" the man said, his voice low and cold. Tom slammed on the brakes, but the world around him dissolved into darkness. When Tom opened his eyes, he was sitting on the bench outside the gas station. He couldn't move. He couldn't scream. He could only watch as another car pulled into the lot. A man stepped out, looking confused and tired, just like Tom had. He walked toward the door of the station, and Tom wanted to warn him, to tell him to turn around and run. But he couldn't make a sound. The cycle had started again. The road was endless, and now, so was Tom's nightmare. Want to know what happens next? Dive deeper into chilling tales like this one on our channel. Subscribe now to explore more terrifying mysteries. And be warned, you might not sleep tonight. Now hit subscribe and join us on the road to the unknown. The endless road continued. When Tom opened his eyes, he was sitting on the cold, hard bench outside the gas station. He tried to move, but his body felt heavy, as if it were made of stone. Panic surged through him as he realized he couldn't even blink. He was trapped, frozen in place. His heart raced as he turned his head slightly, just enough to see a car pull into the lot. A man stepped out, looking just as confused and tired as Tom had felt before. The man glanced around, taking in the flickering lights and the eerie stillness of the gas station. "Hey, don't go in there." Tom wanted to shout, but his voice wouldn't come. The words were stuck in his throat, a scream caught in the web of silence. The man approached the gas station, and Tom could only watch in horror. The gas station door swung open, the tiny bell jingling as the man stepped inside. Tom strained against the invisible weight holding him down, desperate to warn him. But no sound escaped his lips. Inside, the same man stood behind the counter, his head tilted at that unnatural angle, the same wide, toothy grin plastered on his face. The two people on the bench were still there, their eyes unblinking, fixated on the new arrival. "Welcome," the man behind the counter said, his voice a chilling echo. "You're right where you're supposed to be." Tom wanted to scream. "Run! Get out while you can," he thought. But the man was oblivious. He walked up to the counter, casually asking for directions home, just like Tom had done. The man behind the counter didn't respond. Instead, he stared at the newcomer with those cold eyes, as if he were studying him, deciding something. Tom felt a sense of dread wash over him. He couldn't let this happen again. He had to do something. Suddenly, the world around him began to shift. The gas station blurred and twisted, the colors swirling into a vortex of darkness. Tom felt himself being pulled away from the bench, as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling. He found himself back in his car, driving down the same endless road. Confusion washed over him. Was he dreaming? Had he escaped? But as he glanced at the clock, it still read 12:03 a.m. The road stretched on, unchanging. "Please, let this be over," he whispered to himself. But just as he thought that, he saw a familiar glow in the distance. The gas station was back. His heart sank as he pulled in, feeling the weight of dread settle back over him. The same man was there, standing in the middle of the parking lot. This time, he wasn't smiling. His eyes bore into Tom's soul, and Tom felt a chill run down his spine. "Welcome back," the man said, his voice low and cold. "You can't escape." Tom's heart raced as he realized the truth. This wasn't just a nightmare. It was a never-ending cycle. He was trapped in a loop, forced to relive the same terror over and over again, with each new person arriving just like him, unaware of the fate that awaited them. He found himself back in his car, driving down the same endless road. Confusion washed over him. Was he dreaming? Had he escaped? But as he glanced at the clock, it still read 12:03 a.m. The road stretched on, unchanging. "Please, let this be over," he whispered to himself. But just as he thought that, he saw a familiar glow in the distance. The gas station was back. His heart sank as he pulled in, feeling the weight of dread settle back over him. The same man was there, standing in the middle of the parking lot. This time, he wasn't smiling. His eyes bore into Tom's soul, and Tom felt a chill run down his spine. "Welcome back," the man said, his voice low and cold. "You can't escape." Tom's heart raced as he realized the truth. This wasn't just a nightmare. It was a never-ending cycle. He was trapped in a loop, forced to relive the same terror over and over again, with each new person arriving just like him, unaware of the fate that awaited them. In a desperate attempt to break free, Tom turned the car around and sped away from the gas station. He drove faster than he ever had, his mind racing as he searched for an exit, a way out of this endless nightmare. But the road stretched on, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't escape. As he drove, he saw the faces of the people he had left behind, the man in the parking lot, the unblinking figures on the bench. They were all waiting for him, bound to this cursed highway. And then, in a moment of clarity, Tom understood. He wasn't meant to escape. He was part of the cycle now, just like the others. It was a trap, one that fed off his fear and despair, drawing in new souls to join the endless road. Want to know what happens next? Explore more chilling tales like this one on our channel. Subscribe now to dive deeper into terrifying mysteries. And remember, once you enter, there's no turning back. Hit subscribe and join us on the road to the unknown. This continuation delves deeper into Tom's experience enhancing the suspense and revealing the darker truth behind his situation. Let me know if you'd like any modifications or further expansions. Smiling face with smiling eyes.